Mom. Help me. The voice of my daughter, Ria, on the phone was faint, as if it might disappear at any moment. I haven't eaten anything for days. I can't. Help me, Mom. I strained to pick up her voice, which came in fragments. She must be too weak. Ria was lodging at her aunt's house and was supposed to be living a college life from this spring. However, the phone call that day was clearly different. Ria. Pull yourself together. I'm coming to get you right away. She might be caught up in some kind of trouble. Thinking so, unable to stand still, I jumped into the car and rushed to my sister-in-law's house. I just wished for her safety. Arriving, I entered the house without hesitation. But there was no one there. I felt an eerie atmosphere in the silent house with no sound. Then, from the stable in the yard, I heard the neighing of a horse and a distressed scream. My name is Emily Gordon. I'm a single mother in my 40s. My daughter, Ria, lost her father when she was in elementary school, and since then, I've been raising her on my own. To manage our household expenses, I currently work as a contract employee. Ria, who was once a child, is now a high school senior. Mom, listen. Today, the math teacher did something really terrible. Today, as usual, I listened to Ria's complaints about the math teacher. It was something trivial, like most of the class couldn't solve the tricky problems in the quiz. Ria seemed frustrated because she was good at math and couldn't solve the tricky problems. That teacher is unfair. Always. But you solved the others, right? Then it's okay. Yeah, but... She pouted while eating dinner. She's doing well in subjects other than math, partly because I sent her to a cram school near the station. Even the high school teacher has praised her, saying that with her grades, going to her desired university is not just a dream. But it's a fact that going to university requires money. I didn't want her to give up on going to college just because she has a single parent. I also want her late father to see how well she's grown up. I have to earn a steady income. After dinner, I start my side job. I work as a contract employee at a call center during the day and focus on translation work at night. Juggling two jobs is very tough. I work late into the night, wake up early in the morning to make lunch for the two of us, and rush off to work. One day, amidst such daily life, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Amy. Hey, Emily, how are you doing? From the other end of the smartphone, her high-pitched voice casually laughed as she spoke. She called during my work break. Frankly, I'm not fond of her. She has this sarcastic personality, laughing at our struggles as if it's amusing to her. On this day too, she went on with her nonsensical chatter, seemingly laughing at my hardships. Well, it's time for me to get back to work. Excuse me. I quickly hung up and returned to the break room. However, Amy and I still have some interaction. There was a time when Amy's husband bought a new car, and we went for a drive. Her husband, Harry, is very reserved. Even during the drive, he spoke very little, mostly just nodding along or giving simple responses to Amy's chatter. Even at shops or during lunch stops, there was hardly any conversation. Harry ignored Amy's rude remarks. He's passive and just watches from the sidelines. During the drive, he didn't even object to Amy's attempts to one-up me. Her parents often warned Amy about her behavior and attitude. but she never listened. Apart from them, there were no other reliable relatives nearby. My parents have passed away, and my in-laws are alive but live in another prefecture. Though it's often daunting, there's no use lamenting over it. I've always believed in maintaining a good relationship with them, even if it's challenging. I've gritted my teeth and gotten through it so far. I've always told myself that I can manage somehow, and I intend to keep doing so. One day, about 6 months after the call from my sister-in-law, Ria finally started her university entrance exams. Both she and I felt a tense atmosphere at home. Even during meals, Ria keeps her vocabulary book nearby, moving her eyes, mouth, and hands while eating. Ria, put away your vocabulary book at mealtime. Wait, let me memorize this much first. While chewing, she stares at the vocabulary book with a fierce expression. The small cards are filled with tiny characters. Ria is also trying her best to get through the exams. I decided to support her with all my might. Meanwhile, mysterious calls from Amy were coming more frequently. I casually brushed them off, only half listening to what she said. The day of the acceptance announcement arrived. I accessed the website of Ria's desired university and searched for her exam number. I'm scared, Mom. But we won't know until we see it. Beside the trembling Ria, I stared at the screen intently. Like searching for winning lottery numbers, I carefully searched for Ria's exam number. Ria's number. 1130. Found it. Is this it? When I called out, she also eagerly looked at the screen. Ria followed with her finger. 1127, 1128, 1130. Yes. I did it. I did it. Overwhelmed with joy, we hugged each other and jumped around. The university Ria aimed for is a famous national university. Later, Ria's acceptance to her desired university was also posted in the corridors of the school and cram school. Her teacher was also crying tears of joy, saying she had worked hard. However, to attend this university, she needs to live a little far from where we currently live. Ria needs to live alone. Tuition, living expenses, and rent. It's a bit tight. She'll need financial support. I desperately tapped on the calculator while staring at the household accounts. I had been thinking about the future after finishing my side job, but I couldn't quite settle down. Around that time, Amy called again. Hey, listen. We're going to do a neighborhood cleanup at the community association, but the chairman. Listening to her listless voice, I felt annoyed. She didn't have any kids or pets, so she often called because she had nothing else to do. That day, she went on and on about gossip and slander, but I suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, Ria got accepted to a national university. She'll be a college student from spring. Wow. Ria, that's amazing. Congratulations. Her response didn't seem very sincere, so I replied indifferently. Thank you. I guess. Isn't commuting from there going to be tough? She'll live alone, right? Yeah, well, that's the plan. In that case, why don't you let her board at our place? You probably don't have much money, do you? Amy's sudden offer surprised me. Huh? And, you know, since we don't have any kids, there's a spare room. Indeed, Amy and her husband's house was within commuting distance of the university. However, I was a little cautious. But it's not right. Harry is there too, isn't he? It's fine. We were just talking about renting out the spare room recently. The boarding fee was about 30,000 yen, including utilities and internet. For all that was included, it was a good deal. The conditions weren't bad, but I said I would confirm with Ria before getting back to her, just to be sure. I'll be waiting for your favorable answer. She hung up the phone cheerfully as usual. For her, getting a monthly income of 30,000 yen just by renting out a room was probably a good thing. But, it's that shrewd Amy we're talking about. It's normal to think there's something fishy going on. I had intended to consult Ria and, if she didn't like it, decline. When I told Ria about it after she returned from cram school, surprisingly, she agreed to the idea. I can board at Auntie Amy's house for 30,000 yen? Economically, it would help, but it's up to you, Ria. Ria fell silent for a while and pondered. Of course, if you prefer a proper apartment, we'll look for one. No, I'll board at Auntie's house. Huh? Are you sure? Because that would reduce your burden, Mom. I think it's a good idea. Saying that, she smiled. She must be trying not to worry me or cause any trouble. I wasn't too keen on it, but I agreed. Afterward, I informed Amy that Ria would be boarding. However, I made it a condition that she would only board for the first year, as we couldn't rely on them for 4 years. During that year, Ria would save money from her part-time job, and I would increase my workload. This way, we would prepare for Ria to live alone more independently starting from her second year of college. Surprisingly, Amy readily accepted these conditions. Okay. Let me know when the moving day is set. She hung up the phone with a cheerful laugh. On the other hand, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Or rather, the anxiety was greater. I couldn't shake off a bad feeling. As for her, she started packing happily, seemingly looking forward to her new lodging. Watching her, I told myself not to worry too much and spent my time. The moving day was set, and on that day, I drove Ria's belongings in my car. One large suitcase and several cardboard boxes. In addition, Ria packed her blanket, pillow, and favorite stuffed animals. We drove for about an hour, and I pulled the car into Amy's driveway. There, an unusual sight caught my eye. Huh? Horses. There was a slightly spacious garden on the property, and there were horses standing there. Behind the horses was a small shed about the size of one horse. It was so strange that I had to do a double take. The chestnut-colored horse glanced over and turned its head away, seemingly disinterested. I parked the car in the garage and unloaded the luggage. Ria looked at the horses while pulling out her suitcase. It seemed to catch her interest. Then, Amy wandered over. You're here early. It's still noon. It's already noon. Amy was wearing sweatpants and sandals, looking like she had just woken up. Hello. Thank you for having me. Ria bowed her head politely. Her hair, which reached her shoulders, gently swayed. Nice to meet you too. Let me show you to your room. What about the horses over there? Oh, that little one? According to Amy, it went something like this. The horse used to be a racehorse but retired, and it was bought by an acquaintance of hers, However, the horse was not very friendly, and the acquaintance began to have trouble handling it. Hearing about it from the acquaintance, Amy took it because she wanted to try riding it. However, the horse refused to let her ride and was difficult to handle. But it won't let me ride it at all, and it's not friendly. It's more trouble than it's worth. I've heard that horses have different personalities. Perhaps it had a difficult temperament. Just now, it turned away as soon as it saw us. So, I want Rhea to take care of that horse. Really? Wait, what? I was taken aback. I didn't hear anything about that. It wasn't part of the boarding conditions, so I objected, but Amy just laughed. Students don't have much to do anyway, right? Taking care of a horse should be fine. Rhea has to work part-time too. Hearing that, Rhea, who had been listening, intervened between me and Amy. It's okay, Mom. I want to be friends with that little one. Huh? But... Well then, why don't you try touching it a bit? Amy said so and walked Rhea over to the horse. When the horse saw Rhea approaching, it snorted. It leaned into Rhea's face as if checking something. You're a good boy, horsey. I'm Rhea. Nice to meet you. Rhea spoke gently to the horse. Come to think of it, she had always liked animals since she was a child. When she was young, she used to go to the zoo often with her late father. The horse seemed stubborn, but surprisingly, it seemed to have opened up to Rhea. After finishing unloading the luggage, we had lunch together before I headed home. The car, which had become emptier than when I left home, felt strangely lonely. And so, Rhea's boarding life began. The next day, I received a message from Rhea early in the morning. I named the horse Rocky. I heard her report with joy, but apparently, the horse didn't even have a name until then. I wondered what it had been called before, but I just nodded vaguely. For a while after that, I received messages only about Rocky. Since the entrance ceremony of the university, she also talked about her classes. With just these messages, I could probably write a novel. I wonder who she takes after. I opened the messages in between work, somewhat looking forward to them. But that didn't last long, and days passed with longer gaps between messages. She must have gotten busy with university classes and her part-time job. Or maybe she was enjoying herself with new friends. They say no news is good news, but I wondered if this was really the case. However, one day, the communication abruptly stopped. It's strange. Not even seen messages. The next day, and the next month, I didn't hear anything from Rhea. I had a bad feeling and tried to contact Amy, but she just laughed it off. She's such a helpful girl. Please let me talk to Rhea directly. I need to hear from her. No way. She's doing a really thorough job cleaning the bath right now. Amy, let me talk to Rhea. She likes cleaning, you know. She's really enthusiastic. No matter what I said, Amy just kept praising Rhea and didn't pass the phone over. Since I was paying for Rhea's phone bill, there was no reason for it not to connect. Yet, for some reason, she didn't answer the phone. I wonder if something happened. Days passed without being able to focus on my main or side jobs, and I realized things couldn't go on like this. That weekend, I decided to gather my courage and pay a visit to Amy's house. Rhea is my top priority. I have to go. My fleeting relief didn't last long. Unexpectedly, I received a call from Ria. It was Saturday morning, as I was preparing breakfast. Just when I was about to head to Amy's house, my smartphone rang. The caller was from a payphone. It could be Ria. With that thought in mind, I answered the call. Ria. Mom. Help. Ria's voice was weak, as if it could vanish at any moment. I haven't eaten anything for days. I can't take it anymore. Help me, Mom. I managed to pick up her fragmented voice and understand. She must be very weak. Ria. Ria. Stay with me. Where are you right now? I'll come get you. The stable. Ah. With a loud clang, the phone call abruptly ended. Upon hearing the word stable, I hurriedly searched for the address on my smartphone. Oh, get it together. Me? Should I call the police? Or an ambulance? There was no time to hesitate about which one to contact. She might have been involved in some kind of incident. With that thought in mind, unable to sit still, I got into my car and started the engine. I rushed to Amy's house, about an hour away. The roads were empty in the morning, and I arrived earlier than usual. I entered the house without hesitation, but there was no one there. The eerie silence filled the house, with no sound of movement. Then, from the direction of the stable, I heard the neighing of a horse and someone's anguished scream. I hurried towards the sound. Entering the stable, I found Ria, wearing dirty clothes, collapsed on the straw. Rocky, the horse, stood beside her, looking down at her with concern. Ria. I approached Ria and lifted her up. She was limp, but she was breathing and conscious. Mom. Her cheeks were sunken, covered in dirt from head to toe, and her hair was unkempt. She looked so pitiful that she could be mistaken for a homeless person. Why did this happen? I immediately reached for my smartphone in my pocket to call an ambulance. At that moment, I noticed Amy lying outside in the yard. She was also lying on the ground, crying and screaming. Ah. My face. My face. Upon closer inspection, it seemed that she was injured too. For some reason, part of her face had caved in and collapsed. Her collapsed facial features were further distorted by tears. It hurts. It hurts. My tooth broke. That horse, how dare you? Harry was nearby, but he just stood there, looking bewildered and doing nothing. Without understanding what was happening, I called an ambulance. Please come quickly. One person has a facial injury, and the other is unconscious. Yes, yes, the address is. Immediately after, 2 ambulances arrived with blaring sirens. Both Ria and Amy were transported to the hospital, and Harry and I followed behind in the car. Rocky stood alone in the stable, looking lonely and whinnying. When we arrived at the hospital, I held Ria's hand as she lay there receiving intravenous fluids. Her right hand, where blisters had formed, was nothing but skin and bones. What on earth had happened? Once Ria woke up and calmed down, I decided to hear her out. Mom, you see, I haven't been able to go to college. According to her, she hadn't been to college since communication with me had ceased. Upon asking for an explanation, she said she had been bossed around by Amy. I was always doing house chores, preparing and cleaning up meals morning and evening, and doing odd jobs. Odd jobs too? As part of part-time work. But I wasn't paid for the extra work. It seemed Amy had been assigning Rhea odd jobs and pocketing the money. Even when she sought help from Harry, she got nothing but silence. He always turned a blind eye, as usual. Auntie told me to sleep in the stable. Those words filled me with surprise and anger. Even though it was spring, it was insane to make her sleep in the stable. The only solace was the time I spent with Rocky. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face. It must have been really tough. Rhea sobbed uncontrollably. And this morning, Rhea managed to slip out of Amy's house and called me for help from a public phone. When I asked where she was on the phone, she said, "Stable." So that's what it meant, the stable. Yeah. But Auntie found me and hung up the public phone. Rhea, whose hand was snatched away from the receiver, was immediately dragged back. She was thrown onto the straw in the stable, and just as she was about to be hit again, Rocky kicked Auntie in the face. What? Amy was kicked and fell into the yard. As Rocky was originally a racehorse, his strength must have been considerable. Part of her face caved in, causing her to collapse on the ground. After that, I rushed to that stable. It was unbelievable that a horse would come to the rescue. I muttered to myself, but since Rhea had seen it, there was no room for doubt. After hearing everything from Rhea, I was summoned by the attending doctor. Rhea was diagnosed with malnutrition, and I got a medical certificate. I was advised to go to the police with this information. I immediately rushed to the nearest police station. After hearing the story, the police immediately launched an investigation. After questioning Amy, Harry, and me, they also interviewed the neighbors. Amy flatly denied everything, and Harry remained silent. On the other hand, I told them everything I knew, including Rhea's testimony. The neighbors also revealed that they had heard rumors about Amy's bad behavior and mistreatment of her niece. Based on these testimonies, Amy and her husband were arrested for neglecting their duty of care. Furthermore, I consulted a lawyer about claiming compensation from them. Fortunately, evidence and testimonies of their harassment were obtained from the neighbors. The neighbors were also aware of Rhea taking care of the horse. Every time someone passed by, Rhea would lament about being bossed around by her aunt and not being able to go to college. It's no news is good news, but this was no time for such optimism. I deeply regretted putting Rhea up with them. The more I knew the truth, the more my heart ached. For the past few months, every time I thought about how badly Rhea had been hurt, it tore me apart. Based on this evidence, I demanded compensation from Amy and her husband. If you want money that badly, I'll give it to you. Amy spat out such words casually and paid a lump sum. While Rhea took a leave of absence until she recovered, I received another call from Amy. Amy and Harry were able to return home on probation. However, it was diagnosed that Amy's sunken face would not return. She was terrified to see her face every day and ended up breaking all the mirrors in the house. And she began to shut herself in, fearing that others would see her disfigured face. Harry was ordered to transfer to another department after being arrested. As he was nearing retirement age, he requested retirement himself. In reality, it was more like he was forced to quit. He didn't receive as much retirement money as he had hoped, and the couple was struggling to make ends meet. Later, I heard from the neighbors that the couple's bad reputation was spreading, and they were being ostracized. I wonder what happened to Rocky, who was in the yard. Rhea often worried about him even while she was in the hospital. Don't worry. Rocky is probably. I persuaded Amy to consult with the authorities to have him taken somewhere. Eventually, he was taken to a ranch in the prefecture. It seemed he could run around even more freely there than before. His name is still Rocky. That's a relief. Rhea smiled with relief. Rhea continued to recover smoothly and was discharged safely. Her sunken cheeks and bony hands had become healthy again. She decided to move into the university dormitory, saying she was fed up with staying at Amy's house. Living in the dormitory had its inconveniences, such as the supermarket being far away and few buses. Still, she was much happier than staying in the stable, which pleased her. Should have done this from the beginning, I muttered, and Rhea laughed. But it's nice that we got to see Rocky. As we spoke, we were now at the ranch where Rocky was. Rocky was running freely inside the fence as if he loved to run. His figure was so beautiful that it was hard to believe he was the same horse that was in that small stable. Rhea cried tears of joy as she watched Rocky run. When Rocky noticed Rhea, he slowly approached her and nuzzled her with a soft snort. Licking Rhea's cheeks and showing an affectionate and playful expression, he was a very charming horse. Haha, it tickles. Laughing, Rhea stroked Rocky's face. 4 years later, Rhea graduated from university safely. She started job hunting early on, and after securing a job offer from a major company, time flew by. There were many challenges before and during her studies. But because of that, this day felt truly precious. Mom, thank you so much for everything. I bought her a new dress for this special day. She looked so radiant and proud in her dress. I believe my late husband in heaven is also smiling as he watches her. How did you like this story? Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Well then, see you in the next video.